Meg Hillier.
Mr. Hollowbone, pleasure to serve in your chairmanship, and can I congratulate my honourable friends. I think in this occasion we have a common ground for agreement, all honourable friends today, on securing this debate, which is of vital importance. And it's very easy to talk the talk, but I want to talk a bit about how we can perhaps walk the walk in making sure that we really achieve some results. I should declare that I'm now happily a vice chair of the all-party group on social mobility. And I think it's appropriate that I take on that responsibility because I represent one of the poorest boroughs in the country, and I don't want to bombard the committee with statistics, but I think it's important to set in context some of the reasons that I'm particularly interested in this issue. And if you look at the HMRC's child poverty statistics, from 2009's the latest figures, 45, nearly 46% of Hackney children are living in poverty, compared with a London average of 29.6%, nearly 30%, and a national figure of 21%. So we have more than double the national figure of young people, of children living in poverty. And a decade ago, Hackney schools were not delivering results. They were a byword for people actually fleeing Hackney, and people were coming to see me about how they could get their child into schools outside the borough. Now they come to see me begging for me to do anything I can to get their child into a school in the borough. And what we've seen is through London Challenge, Capital Challenge, and embracing by the local authority and the mayor, elected mayor, of every new offer any government can provide. So it was academies under the Labour government. We had another academy agreed since under this government, and a university technical college agreed under this government. We've embraced new fresh start schools, and we have now seen in 2004, just to give you an example, the number of pupils achieving 5 grades A star to C, including maths and English, was at 29%. In 2011, it was 57%, but with some very high achieving schools, and a number of our schools not yet at GCSE stage because they were fresh start schools, including Mossbourne Academy in my constituency, which achieved 84%, 5 A to Ds, including maths and English, and 9 offers of places at Cambridge the year before last. So we are seeing a huge achievement, and actually what we're seeing is that background poverty is not an excuse for schools to see lower achievement, and that we can challenge those stereotypical assumptions, and with good rigour in schools, good teaching, we can achieve results. And Hackney may have its poverty, but there is no poverty of ambition, as those results show. And the educational maintenance allowance take-up was very high, with 3,611 people in receipt of EMA, young people. And that was a very significant factor. I met one young woman who said that on a Thursday, she'd use her EMA to pay the electricity key up so that she could have light and heating in the house in order to, well, for the family to live, but for her indeed to do her homework. So it was used for very basic things. And I know that we've spoken in other debates, so I won't repeat that, but in a debate a couple of weeks ago, I raised my concerns still about what happens to those young people who really need the support. And I know that there has been some attempts to bridge the gap, but I'm not convinced yet that those will do what AMA did for young people in Hackney. And free school meals in Hackney, I think this is a really good example actually of what our schools are achieving. The free school meal take-up at secondary school level is 40% of pupils who are eligible. That's, and in London that figure is 25% and nationally 16%. So we are seeing huge results, yet we have a much higher percentage than the national figure of young people are eligible for free school meals, which is another indicator of the challenges. But in spite of those figures, in 2008-9, the last figures which we've got available from the Minister's Department's own figures, from Biz Department's own figures, 40% of Hackney pupils in maintained schools went into higher education. Now, the statistics, as the Minister will know, aren't absolutely perfect. It's very difficult to track, and I completely endorse my honourable friend, the member for Salford's points about having an alumni system, because I think we don't have enough follow-through about that resource for young people. So, yeah, and if you look at nationally, it's 17% of children going on to university. So we're achieving very well in Hackney on a very, with what might be described as a challenging cohort. So it's a good track record. But it's clear that improving educational results is not enough. And what I've picked up talking to young people is that they very much need these networks that my honourable friend, the member for Salford, talked about. And I want to talk a bit about that and why I've got involved in helping to develop that locally. And honourable members, some of them may have read a book written by the then Andrew Adonis, now in the other place, called A Class Act, now out of print. I'm urging him to update it. But it highlighted the closed nature of professions, which of course an issue that's been brought bang up to date by the government's own independent reviewer on social mobility, Alan Milburn, in his report, which has already been cited, Fair Access to Professional Careers. Now, I won't repeat everything that report said. I'm sure many honourable members in the room are very familiar with it. but it does recognise that professions will account for 83% of all new jobs in Britain in the next decade. So unless we get greater access to professions from across all groups, we'll be cutting out an awful lot of people from new jobs that are being created. And some professions have made good progress. The civil service is one example. Of today's, in 2012's top 200 civil servants, 27% were privately educated, which compares to 45% just 3 years ago in 2009. Now, that's not a result of particularly this government's activities, or even to a degree the last government's activities. That's actually an organisation recognising that it perhaps didn't represent the people that it serves. And I think that we need to look at this grip by the professions on how they recruit things. I was visiting a school in Hackney the other week, and when I'll touch on what I'm doing with some schools, but they were saying we really need contacts, particularly in banking, and I'm interested that the previous honourable member to speak was formerly in banking. 90% of jobs in banking go to people who've already had some work experience, but those work experience places go to people who are usually the children of partners or the children of clients. Now that cuts out, well, pretty much everybody in a Hackney school. And yet we are on the edge of the city, and we have very good links with UBS Bank that sponsors us academy, KPMG, not a bank, but an accountancy firm that sponsors another academy, and the City of London that also sponsors that academy. Now, I do think that we must keep challenging this, and I'm going to touch on some of the work that I've been doing to make that useful. And one of the other issues that Alan Milburn's report raises was this issue about experience and internships, and this requirement or this desire to see them paid and accessible to all. And I want to focus on that word accessible, because I don't completely disagree with my honourable friend, the member for Salford. I do think we need to see proper paid internships. But my worry is, and I think we need to be careful about this, that if we go only down that route, we move the point at which young people are selected for those positions, that competition element, to the interview stage. And are all our young people ready for that? So we actually, if we're going to do this properly, it's not just about having the payment element for those internships. It's actually about having the earlier preparation so that young people are not in the same position of nervousness that my honourable friend described when she went for her first interview, but are ready for that. We hear horror stories, but I must share one that I heard. It sounds unbelievable, but I won't quote the source because it might embarrass him. But a young person from another part of the country, not my own, keen to go and study medicine, had an interview at Cambridge and had done a lot of preparation, turned up to the interview, walked into the room, and there were 3 men sitting on the floor in order to carry out the interview. That's quite a recent example. I think we've heard stories about the tutor who'd throw a rugby ball as you entered the room to see if you could catch it, and if you caught it, you got a place. If you converted it, you got a scholarship. And these may be anecdotes from the past, but it perhaps demonstrates that there are issues around how universities admit people, and I want to touch, if I have time, on that as well. So I do think we need to make sure that with internships, we look at all aspects of access to it, not just the money, making sure people feel comfortable. In Hackney, B6, which is our local sixth form college, has introduced something that's called the Red Room. It's kitted out a room in the college to look something like an Oxbridge Don's study, with low chairs and book-lined, a courtyard outside, and a tutor from Oxford, a fellow from Oxford, turns up every week to talk to pupils, teach them in that room, and give them a feel of what it is like to be in that environment. And I'll certainly give way to my friend.
I thank my friend for giving way and agree very strongly with what she's saying. One of the points I've made to our sixth form college is that one's oral expression is absolutely key going to interviews, and so often it's those from private schooling, for the middle class, who have enormous advantages just in the way they speak, and giving people the opportunity to learn a more elaborate way of speaking, if you like, gives them a much more advantage at interview.
Meg Hillier.
Absolutely, and I think that's very important. And I would wonder if I could ask the Minister, if the government is a great buyer, it buys a lot of business from a lot of organisations, and I wonder if in government contracts there couldn't be some requirement that there is some support given to young people from the sort of backgrounds of organisations. Certainly.
I'm very grateful to the honourable member for giving way. Can I just make a very quick plug for MPs recruiting apprentices in their own offices? I've just had a fantastic experience with my first apprentice caseworker for the last year, and I'm shortly taking another one from a school in my constituency. It's a fantastic experience for them, and it has been for me too.
Well, I hear what the Honourable Lady said, and I think we could all set an example in this respect. If you look at the diversity or lack of it of people applying for jobs in Parliament, I think it's an issue that we all can and should be tackling in our recruitment. I think others will be raising issues around access to university, but I should comment on how the Open University is doing an awful lot to improve access and helping people going through the Open University into Russell Group universities and making that progression. And I think that that's important for a range of people too. But I wanted just to talk a bit about, very briefly, about what is happening with young people in Hackney. I've been conducting set up something called Next Steps, which is a networking program similar to the one my honourable friend described, providing access to young people to build networks with professional and business people. And I've hosted so far one event, another one about to come up next week, where professional people have come and to learn teaching young people about networks, providing the connections. So the young woman who said, I've written to everyone I can think of to try and get a placement, I want to be a medical student, and not finding it. I was able to find her a place because the address book of an MP, even if I wasn't an MP, but because of where how I've progressed to this point in my life, means we've got that access. And we need to be doing more of that. What the young people say to me is, we don't want handouts, we want help, we want we want HR, not social CSR or social responsibility is what they tell me. And Hackney Council did a very interesting scrutiny. The Children and Young People Scrutiny Commission looked at raising aspirations, and they talked to young people themselves. Hackney Youth Parliament commissioned research, and these are the views of Hackney young people. They say, and I think we should all listen to this, we want better listening and engaging with young people when devising participation strategies. Don't tell us how to do it, but ask us what we want and what we need. Involve young people in the world of work, to include improving the careers service. So the single careers service I have hopes for. I'm not sure every careers service, as I think the Honourable Gentleman raised at the beginning, never perfect, but I live in hopes. And develop a world of work curriculum as part of PHSE, and run showcase opportunities for children, young people, carers and parents to include enterprise day, milk rounds, paid placements, etc. So they know what they want and they know what their parents need in order to help them break through, as has been described. And I think we need to make sure that that is done. And I do want to touch on that point about parental support. It can be very challenging for parents, particularly those from backgrounds where they haven't got professional links. Maybe English is not their first language. Maybe literacy in mother tongue is a challenge, and connections in their mother tongue community are not great. Some of them need support in understanding that there are these opportunities for their young people are good ones to pursue, and in choosing options, the parents' support in making the right choices is very important. But unless we help educate parents as well as provide support to young people, we're not going to make that breakthrough.